Welcome to the closing discussion, everybody. We tried to organize things this year. Organize is a strong word. I won't say that. But we had a vague notion this year that we should finish the closing discussion with what several people coming into the event said was by far and away the most important technology in our space. And I have to say, I agree with them. Compared to all of the other technologies we've been discussing, trends and developments in the AI space have absolutely, by far and away, the most important. They are undoubtedly going to revolutionize the financial services industry, and it's more interesting than other technologies in a way, in that once I'm trying to pick an example of something that might work, so, all right, not blockchain, but something else, databases or something. But the point is, you could, like, when people were telling you, what if there was something that was kind of like a database before we had a database? You could sort of imagine how things would be after you had a database, right? So that you get the data and whatever. But when AI works, we can't possibly imagine what things are going to be like, the other side of it. So we've put together a panel of people who actually know stuff about this. I mean that quite seriously, because really the only thing I've heard more rubbish talked about than the blockchain at this event is AI. So I'm really glad that you guys are here to provide something. So I'm going to just get the panelists to super quickly introduce themselves and tell you their perspective, and then we're going to go into a discussion about how AI is going to change our business. So Clara, would you like to start? And it's etiquette. You are allowed to mention the book that you've just published, which is by far and away the most interesting and important book in this space. But it's up to you whether you mention it or not, but okay.
Thank you. I'm Clara the Roadie. Clara the Roadie. I am the founder of Cognitive Finance Group. We are based in London, and we are specialized in AI strategic advice for financial services. We primarily work with board of directors, so we do a lot of high-level, if you will, I call it empowerment of decision makers with the right knowledge around AI. We also do data science work for some of our clients, but we also do engagement. We have engagements with a portfolio of AI companies which we support. Our mission is to build an ecosystem of ethical AI for financial services. And I'll talk a little bit about, later in the conversation, about the meaning, the fundamental importance of ethical AI deployment in our industry. I wrote a book, it's called Decoding AI in Financial Services. It does not have any mathematical equations. That was the major requirement I received and the feedback I received from my clients, board of directors. Write a book on AI, but don't do any maths. So I achieved the impossible. So that's about me. Anything else? You can ask later.
I'll just skip to Brett first. So Brett, you wrote one of the first books, I think, which kind of made me aware of the kind of magnitude of the transition in this space, Augmented. I know that was a couple of years ago, but it was kind of important. Why don't you tell people, well, everybody knows what you do, but why don't you tell people a little bit about your perspective?
So I wrote on Augmented about how it's going to change our lives in society. I'm writing a book now called The Rise of Techno-Socialism, based on how AI will sort of coalesce social action around changes in employment, and combined with climate change and inequality and things like that. I started life as a coder, so I'm essentially a technologist at heart. So we've implemented some basic machine learning and artificial intelligence in Moven. We started that back in 2012, so fairly early in the cycle. But you can just call me the robot previously known as Brett King. Yeah.
Nicolas, please.
Thank you very much. So I'm Nicolas Meric. I created 6 years ago DreamQuark. So DreamQuark is really specialized in financial services and AI, and we develop a software that is deployed across a couple of banks, BNP Paribas, RBS use our services, AG2R, La Mondiale, large health insurance providers. The idea is that we're focusing a lot on explainable AI, which is a key topic for moving to ethical AI, and ethical AI in 2020 would be something really important. And what we see is that basically financial services are using this technology, but the potential of AI compared to what's being done right now, what I need to say is that we are really far from all what we can do with AI. So
yeah,
come to that later.
Yeah, that was really where I was gonna start. So, if actually, I just want to say one thing about books. So, for most people in the audience, the first book that they would probably think of about this stuff was actually I, Robot, right? The Asimov. Well, I mean,
Isn't it crazy that in 1946 or whatever it was, he wrote that?
Yeah.
Before, like, this was 20 years after the term robot
was even
existed.
Invented. Yeah.
And then, the 3 laws of robotics. That's just crazy amazing.
Yeah, so the point is that kind of thing. But the reason I bring that up was because, I mean, most people, I don't know, they don't look like big readers. Have you seen the movie with Will Smith, I, Robot? You know what he's talking about in that? I mean, okay, all right, so we're on safer ground with that. And you remember there's like 3 laws of robotics. So robots mustn't kill people. They mustn't press that button that says I'm not a robot on websites. And they must not, I don't know what the third one was, I can't remember. But the point is, when you say AI to people, they think about robots and giant killer robots. And well, I think about giant killer robots more than is probably healthy. But actually, that's not the reality of AI in financial services. So before we start talking about the future, can we just like drive a stake into the ground for people? What is AI actually being used for now in financial services? Any of you?
So maybe I can start because I see this every day. So there are a couple of areas where AI is being used. A lot of our current focus in the commercial side. We see that companies want to increase revenues, reduce the churn of the customers. So they use data in order to predict which customer will buy product, which customer will leave their banks. It's pretty much used for fraud detection because fraud is a big cost driver for banks and insurance companies. So they want to reduce that. So there is naturally also money laundering, which is a part of fraud. Then the improving risk modeling is a key area because basically for banks, insurance companies, element of choosing AI is that they see that the processes will be more efficient. They see that they will have better models and therefore lower costs. They see that they can drive revenues. So this is basically a key area where they want to use AI. But there are multiple use cases. I think there are more than 100 of use cases in the banking industry.
I'm driving us. So Clara, I mean, I know you interviewed hundreds of people for your book. So generally, what is AI being used for in financial services now as opposed to the future?
So with some of our clients and also people I interviewed for my book, if you look at the business model, which are quite different, wealth management, for instance, has a different business model, operational model to wealth management, to retail banking, and so on and so forth, to investment bank business model. Every single business model, if you slice it in business processes, we have identified that every single business process in every single business model in financial services can be automated intelligently using some sort of AI form. And I think that's very impressive. So anything from customer engagement all the way through to sales and marketing, all the way through to the function of finance, so accounting, all the way through to through IT, for instance, as well as legal function. All of this are business processes which use AI.
So we're already...
And trading, of course. Sorry.
Yeah. And in fact, trading is one of the greatest areas of impact right now. You could go to the classic example is UBS's trading floor in Stamford, Connecticut, which was 5,000 square feet full of traders and today's empty. Goldman Sachs has repeated the number where they can replace 6 traders with 1 developer through the use of artificial intelligence. So that's very tactical.
Can I just ask you about that job thing? Because one of the kind of famous quotes in this space, a couple of years ago, John Cryan, who was the CEO of Deutsche Bank, rather famously said in the Financial Times, shortly before he was fired, but not for saying this. He said, and he may not have cleared this with his HR department, let's just make that clear, but he said, currently we employ people to behave like robots, and in the future we'll employ robots to behave like people. To most of the people in this audience, that actually sounds a little bit scary. That sounds like they're all going to be out of work.
Well, the biggest shift is probably around the advisory piece. In financial services, in healthcare, in legal, in all of these areas, we think about human information asymmetry. The reason you go to a lawyer, the reason you go to a tax advisor, the reason you go to a banker who can advise you on investments is they know more about that topic than you do. And we're finding in areas where information asymmetry exists today that machines can process data that leads to analysis or decision making in those fields better than humans, because they can just simply absorb more data. Now, you may have a human to, like in the case of medical services, for example, a computer will be better at diagnosing cancer than a human doctor, but you're still going to need a doctor to be involved in the delivery of the news that you've got cancer, for example. But when it comes to diagnosis, when it comes to choosing a portfolio, these are areas where AI will fairly quickly exceed the performance of humans.
Before I come to Nicolas, can I just ask you? So, to me, that's, I don't want to sort of be negative to the people here, but if the future of AI in financial services is just everybody out of work, that's a bit gloomy. Do you have a slightly more optimistic view?
So,
I mean, you don't have to say yes, but it would kind of help.
So my answer is a bit a little bit more nuanced. So in my previous life, before I founded Cognitive Finance, I used to be a practitioner. So I'm a portfolio manager by training in wealth management, and I also served in executive management roles. And our purpose was to grow a business from 20 people, 200 million under management, to 15 billion when at the point at which the company was sold. So I have direct hands-on experience of what it actually means to deploy technology at least in asset and wealth management business models. So what I've seen, starting with the arrival of iPhone, that was 2007, right? What we've seen, the volume of data and regulatory requirements have put a lot of pressure on the company to hire more staff to handle the level of data. So at least the compliance department tripled in the space of 5 years. And I know from colleagues in the industry that they had the same concern. So my point of view is that the number of staff employed in financial services has tripled, perhaps gone 10 times from the level of 10, 15 years ago, primarily to deal with this level of data and regulatory requirements. And all this while, a lot of companies, like the one I used to work, we invested in human capital, which is the most expensive entry in any company. So we invested in human capital and very little in technology. So now we're finding at a point where actually we can't build and continue to be sustainable as a business if we don't invest in technology. And what is the impact, immediate impact? Is that people who were not, not necessarily needed, we would need to level off somehow. We need to train the people we've got. Some people will lose their jobs. But more likely than not, those who lose their jobs and will never find a job in financial services are people who cannot understand that they need to really use this artificial intelligence and all emerging technologies to enrich their careers. It's a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and I would encourage everyone to get on board and learn and educate themselves.
I just want to check with Nicolas. So when you were talking about the deployments you're involved in, does that mirror is it primarily regulatory compliance, that sort of stuff? Is that what's driving the spending that you see?
Yeah, so right now it's not about revolutionizing financial services. This is to make it more efficient. So a lot of the investment is in the commercial function, churn, improving product management, identifying how to improve product and solution. So this is a big area of focus of our customers. There is a lot of interest in anti-money laundering, because anti-money laundering is an area where there is a staff explosion. The reason of that is that the regulator enforces that the case goes through a process, and any time there is an alert from a system, that alert needs to be reviewed. So the system have generated a lot of what we call false positive. So this is files that are said to be related to money laundering, but what we see is that basically 99% of the cases are not related to any money laundering. So they need to be reviewed, and you need to close carefully. This is a big area where AI can help making this more efficient, and risk also.
No. So Brett, I don't want to get into techno-socialism so quickly, but if I'm understanding these guys right, then we lose jobs on the mechanical compliance, whatever, and we find more interesting jobs for people to do, which in theory would deliver more added value to the customer. So actually, the more robots we have, the better, because they increase productivity and free up people to do other things. Is that the right reading of this? Or do we all just end up out of work?
Oh, well, I think that's often the argument, but the problem you've got is skill set. As Clara was pointing out, that I think the world is going to get divided into, in general terms, those who work with robots and AI and those who don't. And so, you need a fairly different skill set to move forward in financial services, because if financial services of the future is driven by data science, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and these elements, robotic process automation, et cetera, then there is a smaller and smaller group of your current employees that are useful in that transition. So you either, and this is, you're familiar with CM Commercial in Thailand, how they pursued this. When they made that realization, they said to their staff, either we retrain you so that you're ready for the organization that's coming, or we'll help you get a job outside of banking, And I think it's sort of binary like that. I think, if it depends how far you want to look out. If you look at 2 or 3 years, no. But if you look at 15 or 20 years, then absolutely. Very little of the work we do in banking today will be done by humans, primarily because as we modernize and automate banking, we're getting rid of all those processes that humans are involved in today and automating those. And that's the huge shift because there's so much inefficiency in banking based on policy and process today, and that just becomes code and data in the future.
Could I just jump here and share with you, with the panel and the audience, a cool project we're working on. We've been approached to advise an institution on how to build avatar financial advisors. And this is typical and it's very specific for wealth management. It's very interesting. It's especially for wealth management, which is out of all sectors under financial services umbrella, it's according to PwC, they are the slowest in adopting technology. So the world is going to that place, and this financial avatar, this financial advisor avatar would replicate the behavior, this decision-making model of individual financial advisors. So a new model is coming through of deploying AI, is not leveling everyone according to what one model, AI model, thinks or decides. It's more nuanced than this. It's what I call in wealth management point 3.0. It's replicating individual financial advisors' behavior, which is already it's already proven that the client likes. And that's where at least wealth management in this particular subset is going. It's very interesting.
And when it comes to Robo Advisors, let's be clear. It's not putting Pepper Robot in branches. That's not what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
No, well,
absolutely.
I figured that because we live in this world of Google TensorFlow that everyone's using to make deep fakes and videos and stuff like that. My assumption is that when I log in for my Robo Advisor, and I get, actually I don't want to say something inappropriate, but you know, I would get, you know, some film star that I like, and when you log in to do it, you'll get some Australian sports person of some kind that you, I mean, you know, the way they're going to do this is not going to be that stupid robot thing at the bank that people go.
Well, we try and personify AI often, right? And so when we talk about AI, even, you know, with IBM Watson, Ginny Rometty called Watson he. You know, so we do tend to personify artificial intelligence. But you know, much of AI in financial services is going to be diffuse. It's going to be you know, built into interfaces. You know, the most common use of AI that we'll find in retail financial services will be things like you asking Amazon Alexa, "Can I afford to go out for dinner on the weekend?" You know, it's not necessarily going to be a financial advisor avatar replacing a human in a bank branch. It may be more diffuse than that.
Something I want to state is that it's good also to come back to reality of what's happening in the bank. Is that from when I started the company, I had big expectation, and then I underestimated the slow decision powers of the organization. So there are a lot of things that we can do, but in the reality, it's a slow journey. And what companies are confronted right now is that first there are people that need to decide to use that technology, but there is also the regulator, so they are sometimes afraid of deploying that technology because they say, okay, but the regulator will come, will it be compliant? Then there is deployment cycle with the technology. So right now, I think there are big dreams and many things that we can do, but at the moment we are really in the slow transition phase where it's mainly not artificial intelligence as we envision it, but really machine learning, algorithms that learn from data, but all the data is not available. So you have not completely all what you can achieve later. So we are really at the beginning of that journey, and it's a really slow journey.
No, we were talking about this before, right? So a lot of what people call AI is really machine learning. We haven't got a real AI in financial services yet.
Well, artificial intelligence, and I had a very long conversation with computer scientists back in Oxford when I spent 2 months in Oxford doing academic grade research for my book. And the conclusion of the whole conversation was that machine learning, it is a subset of AI. Yeah. So it is other subsets like computer vision and so on and so on, NLP, natural language processing. So we are at a point where, as you said, it's just we're not there yet. However, the work we do with decision makers, we try to steer them away from thinking like, let's do what is needed in the next 2 years, because that's all we can do at the moment. We tend to advise our clients with a 5 to 10 year horizon. And why is this important? It's important because in order to have AI, and we've established that AI will be at the core of financial services institutions, we will have AI-first financial services industry. That's the future. So with our clients, we take a 5 to 10 year horizon, and we help them understand the infrastructure, the prerequisites which they need in order to reach that AI first. We tend to stay away from this what can we do now? By the way, we advise against deployment of RPA tools. As we can see already, RPA tools are being paired with machine learning tools in order to be upgraded. So if you don't build the infrastructure right with a 5 to 10 year horizon, then you end up where we are now, quilting, which is doing patchwork so that the system, the mainframes won't collapse, and we see yet another day without a major tragedy.
Let me switch you to looking at the future now, and I'm going to do it by asking, I hope, a not too controversial question, but I just want to change the perspective a little bit. So when I go to things like this and I see people on stage talking about AI, they're talking about the financial services industry using AI, and they're talking about efficiency and blah, blah, blah. All of which I completely agree with, of course. Clara's right, of course that's going to... But it's not disruptive. I mean, you're still selling me a mortgage or credit cards or whatever. It's not really. I mean, you're still doing the same things. Google and Amazon and guys like that, they're going to put AI in the hands of consumers. And that's surely the disruptive thing, is when consumers get AI, not when banks get AI.
Well, you can already see it in China with facial recognition. That's massively disruptive. It's changed the way people pay. It changed the way IDV works, so it's massively disruptive. But the use of AI to assist you, having a personal assistant in your life that's built around AI, think somewhere between Amazon Alexa and Siri today and Samantha from the movie Her, that is definitely the trajectory that the primary operating systems are going, because they want that to be the new sort of primary gatekeeping capability for experiences.
I think that the reason why there is a mismatch between what Amazon, Google are developing and the bank are developing is that right now there is a tendency to reinvent the wheel. So without thinking about what I need to do next and what I need to do to be beyond what Amazon and Google are developing. So there is this 10 trends where all banks, insurance companies are just redoing the things without having the willingness to invest into novel technology that some maybe provider develop. And right now there is not that vision, I think, in the industry of what we should do next and where we should to invest. And okay, we will lose, we will fail on the way, but at the end, even if we fail, we will find new things that may be interesting for our business.
Clara, can I push you a bit harder on this? Sure. Like when the bank has an AI and the regulator has an AI and the customer has it. As the customer, I don't want to get involved in this, right? Because if you look at you're talking about wealth management, like really important decisions in that space, like pensions and things like that, it's almost a matter of negligence that you're involving me in those decisions. I know nothing about that. Like why you would ask people about any of this stuff, I have absolutely no idea. Like the bank shouldn't even be allowed to ask a person. So when the bank has AI and the consumer has AI and the regulator has AI, why would you continue to sell products that make sense to people? Like, you would sell things that I don't even understand because nobody ever goes near them anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I think people aren't thinking expansively enough about AI in this space. Or you think I'm just science fiction?
No. I completely see what the point where you are going with the narrative, and I think it's of great value. We will.
Hungarians are rude so politely.
We
Clarence,
will.
Thank you.
We will be in a place where these tools, AI tools, will know us better than we know ourselves. Technology philosophers, I tend to spend a lot of time with them, alongside with computer scientists who build this technology and who spend time thinking about the moral implications of building this type of technology. That's a common denominator of their position. We will have technology, this digital assistants, which will know us better than we know ourselves. But very importantly, in financial services, Dave, you're absolutely right. We shouldn't be involved in making decisions. The regulators, I don't know the framework in Europe, but in the UK, I remember when the regulations were changed in personal financial advice, the regulator pushed the decision onto the client. Does the client want to be in a high risk, medium risk, or low risk type of portfolio? I mean, what is the job of a digital of a financial advisor if the financial advisor asks the client which portfolio you want to be in? So but I remember it was a big shift imposed by the regulator to put the final onus onto the customer to make the final investment decisions. And to that point, Dave, you're absolutely right. We are not qualified to make this type of decisions. It's so complicated. You need a PhD in this.
Well, but
are people they're underestimating the impact, aren't they, if anything?
Well, we've already seen tens of thousands of jobs in financial services lost to artificial intelligence. So let's be clear about it. It's already happening. The skill sets required for organizations to survive in the future absolutely require skills in machine learning and AI. And for most financial services companies, we don't even have a chief data scientist or chief AI officer at the moment. So that shows you the disparity in terms of where we're at today, where we're going, and how prepared FIs are.
One element of where we're going will be also based on the regulation that's coming this year. For example, in Europe, there is a regulation about trustworthy AI and ethical AI, and it will pose some constraint on what you will build. And therefore, I don't know completely where we will go, because that regulation may completely change the way we can invent.
All I can say is be kind to robots. You never know what's going to happen in the future.
Soon. Okay, listen. So we had to stay with the 6:20 hard stop. I apologise for that, but there are people in the room who have to go to catch a plane. I don't really care about them, but I do too. So we've got to kind of stop it there. Listen, these guys, they didn't know what questions I was going to ask them. You heard the honest opinions of people who are at the absolute forefront of this industry. I hope you appreciated their answers as much as I did. Thank you very much.